Do you want to space like this? Or maybe even like this? But no matter how much you try, you just mess it up and end up dying. Fear not, as in this video, I will go over the mechanics and tricks that top tier Korean pros use to space perfectly. But before I go into that, I just want to remind you that if you need help trying to improve at League of Legends, I and a group of LCS coaches and challenger players help players like you gain 400 LP in 6 weeks in the Masters Roadmap program. So, if you're interested in personalized coaching, drills, lessons, and engaging in a community where everyone is trying to become better at the game, message me the word spacing to book a free call with me to see if you would be a good fit for next season. For the first technique Korean pros use, I want to show you how Viper, the current AD carry for Hanwha Life, uses spacing to dominate lanes as well as how you can apply these tricks in your own games. Let's focus specifically on how he positions his mouse and inputs attack commands to punish enemies within his range, without even giving them a chance to fight back. Here, he is playing Caitlyn against Lulu and Jinx. Caitlyn, with a 650 unit attack range, outranges Lulu and Jinx, who at this point have 550 and 605 range. The strategy here is as follows. As Jinx and Lulu have less range, they will aim to close the distance between them and Caitlyn whenever there's a fight, so they can attack her back. Viper knows this, so he has to be very careful when wanting to harass them, meaning that he cannot trade 1-for-1 in auto attacks. He always wants to attack without taking damage back. In other words, he wants to use his 50 range advantage in his favor to get damage for free. Knowing that, whenever Viper wants to use his range advantage to poke, he will quickly click backward after inputting an attack command, so Jinx and Lulu cannot close the distance. On paper, that sounds easy, but in reality, that would demand him to play around his range and movements perfectly and abuse his spacing knowledge. Note that if Jinx or Lulu are walking forward, it becomes hard for Caitlyn to attack without getting attacked in return. So the secret here is aiming to attack when they're facing backwards or stuck in their animations. That is why Viper constantly clicks forward and backward in his max attack range. If he doesn't see an angle to attack for free, he will walk backwards. But if the enemies do get in his max range, he will attack them for free. That is why he's able to auto Lulu 4 times, dropping her to 50% HP in a span of 6 seconds. The key takeaway from Viper's play is his mouse control and how frequently he clicks on his enemies. Not every click results in an auto attack, but by buffering attack commands between movement commands, he guarantees he punishes enemies that enter his range. This is extremely similar to how pros seem to react instantaneously to engages. For example, if an Alistar notices a Rel about to engage, he can cast his headbutt on Rel even before the Rel flashes, so that the moment she tries to engage, Alistar immediately knocks her away. Another thing worth noting is that these high-level players never use low DPI settings. Having a medium to high DPI is extremely important in League, as it allows you to quickly adjust your position while keeping your mouse near your attack range, which is exactly what Viper does. Keep in mind that most pros play at 1600 DPI and 50 in-game sensitivity, for an effective DPI of 80,000. You can check yours by taking your mouse DPI and multiplying by your in-game sensitivity. And if you find yourself to be 50% over or under this number, I suggest making some changes. This is beneficial as it enables you to dodge abilities more effectively, tether enemy ranges, meaning going in and out of their ranges to bait abilities and attacks, and rapidly punish enemies who make mistakes. Similar to Viper, T1's AD carry Gumayusi also excels at spacing and playing at his maximum attack range throughout the whole game. But to achieve it, he uses a different trick. We saw that Viper likes to click back and forth at his maximum range while inputting attack commands to punish enemies that enter his range. Guma, however, is constantly hitting his A key to see his character range while trying to play around it. And when I say constantly, I really mean it. Check this clip of his Jinx teamfight and pay attention to how much he presses A and clicks to play around his range. For a lane phase, we can see that he is also very aggressive, and like Viper, he is always willing to step forward and punish enemies at his max range. I want you all to remember this. You can be a decent player by simply farming in lane, poking here and there, and then going to late game teamfights geared up, but that won't take you too far. If you want to be a great player, you need to seize aggressive angles. This means learning how to move properly and punish enemies who enter your range, which is exactly what we're seeing in these clips. It may be difficult at first, and you may take too much minion damage, but finding the perfect balance between aggressive and defensive movements will allow you to space like a pro. That being said, there's one noticeable difference I want to point out in these AD carry clips. Gumayusi and Viper are good examples of the 2 ways you can excel at spacing as an AD carry, especially in the laning phase. First, we see that Viper is constantly inputting attack commands to enemies near his max range. That way, his character will automatically attack whoever enters his range. The other option, as we see from Gumayusi, is spam click A, while doing micro movements to always see our range, and then we input attacks to people who are about to enter it. As we saw, AD carries have to master 3 things to space well in lane. First, it is crucial that they know who has the range advantage, so they can attack the enemies without giving them windows to fight back. Second, range knowledge would be useless without proper movement knowledge. This is because proper movement allows you to keep a safe distance while inputting attack commands. Lastly, animations. This is something that most people overlook. When spacing, your best angles to attack while not being vulnerable is when the enemy is either stuck in an animation, let's say they're last hitting, or they're walking backwards, meaning their champions are in the turn back animation. Both scenarios ensure that the enemy will very likely not have time to attack you back. Speaking of these concepts, let me show you the lane where spacing will usually matter the most, especially in the early stages of the game, and that will be top lane. More specifically, let's analyze the micro-movement god Zeus. After securing a small minion advantage, Zeus looks to harass Camille. Pay attention to how he does an auto attack when she could easily use W to trade back, instead uses his Q to avoid entering her range. Since Camille's W range is roughly the same as Jace's auto attack range, Zeus's goal is to either bait her W or auto her when she's moving backwards. This introduces some mind games into the situation. One side note here, so far we focus on AD carry spacing, but for top and mid lanes, cooldowns play a significant role. So after successfully baiting Camille's W, Zeus can finally play more aggressive and attack her, while still using his range and slow advantages to attack her when she can't attack him back. Look at his patience while moving here. Most of us would tank the wave and walk forward with a level lead, but Zeus is using his small advantages and not letting Camille trade back. This is exactly how he dominates Korean challenger top laners. Zeus knows how important it is to play right outside of her W range. Look at how he uses his hammer Q range and slow. Camille can't even do anything in this situation. Now the wave is bouncing back, and Camille is going to have to cry for a gank. We can't blame her though, she is playing against the best Jace in the world. I hope you can see how much you can abuse your lane opponent if you space correctly. Camille couldn't even play the game, and she's a Korean challenger player. Imagine what you can do in your own solo queue games if you applied proper spacing. The secret here is constantly thinking about how to move in a way that punishes your enemy's cooldowns and avoids giving them the range to fight back. Do pro players always consciously think about every minor detail? Not always. But with enough practice and actively thinking about one thing at a time, everything starts to click and eventually becomes second nature. The main takeaway from this clip is that spacing is all about getting these small leads. We can't always be attacking our enemies. Sometimes we have to bait their abilities first, before we weave in a few auto attacks and abilities by using range and movement advantages. So far, we've seen ADC spacing, which mainly involves range knowledge and movement, and top lane spacing, which is all about micro movements and punishing ranges, cooldowns, and animations. Mid lane spacing, however, falls somewhere between these two categories, as ranges and cooldowns will vary greatly depending on the matchup. The main idea for mid lane spacing is to punish cooldowns while preferably maintaining wave control. Let me show you a clip of Chovy to explain this further. Here, Chovy is playing Hui versus Victor. This can be a tough matchup early on, as Victor is a strong lane bully, especially if he takes Airy. But let's see how Chovy plays it. Chovy knows that Victor will likely step forward aggressively and look to combo his Q plus auto attack, as his shield can absorb wave aggro. So, Chovy needs to use a small range advantage while still auto attacking the mains to try to secure lane control. What I'm wanting to notice in this level 1 is how good mid laners will not stop attacking the wave in these matchups. Instead, they will attack the wave while still maintaining the correct distance for their trading patterns. Here, we can see that Chovy doesn't let Victor Q him for free. He maintains max Q range distance in the early levels. After hitting level 2, he postures aggressively when he has his abilities up and plays more defensively when they're on cooldown. Note that he zones when his abilities are up and he has a wave control. The spacing aspect here is his movement and range knowledge. It doesn't seem like much, but those minor details add up and make players like him and other Korean pros so dominant in lane. After getting a small health lead, he can keep posturing aggressively while saving his abilities. A common mistake players make in these spots is using their abilities on the wave, but Chovy knows he needs to space aggressively and punish. That's why after crashing the wave, he doesn't go back. He stays around the tower range and punishes Victor when he goes for last hits, leading to an easy kill. That'll be all for today. Thanks for watching.